Is everybody ready? All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Gregoire Ybarra. And we have an NSL sign language interpreter. But Cafayat, you're freezing. Cafayat, we are having a hard time seeing you. We probably will have some tech problems. Anyway, my name is Gregoire Ybarra. I'm faculty at Gallaudet University, and I will be one of the moderators of the panel this morning from Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. I am moderating with Umar, and I will now turn it over to Umar to introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Umar Tukur. I'm a faculty here at Gallaudet University. Myself and Gregoire will be the moderators for today's panel.
And if I may, excuse me, everyone, I'm so sorry to interrupt. My name is Amanda Mueller, and I am the Deaf E3 project director. It seems like we're having some technical issues right now, and I want to make sure that full access is provided to everyone. So if we don't mind pausing for 1 second, it seems like the NSL interpreter, Cafayat, is freezing on the screen. And so we'd like the other interpreter to come up. I'm trying to figure out what's the best approach. So Ms. Ogechi, would you mind signing? And Gregoire, if you don't mind starting over. Thank you everyone for your patience with our technology to make sure that everyone has access and support. Hello again, everyone. My name is Gregoire Ybarra. I'm a faculty member here at Gallaudet University, and I will be one of the moderators of the panel today with Mr. Umar.
Hi, my name is Umar. I'm a faculty member at Gallaudet University alongside Gregoire. Gregoire and I will be the moderators for today's panel.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We hope this panel will start you thinking about the deaf communities in Africa. And before we get started, I would like Amanda to come back on screen to give some opening remarks about this program. And then after that, we will introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's panel. I do want to take a moment to thank USAID for their support of the Deaf E3 activities that have been taking place. And the Deaf E3 represents education, empowerment, and employment. So this meeting is possible through their generous support. Additionally, I would like to thank Gallaudet University for their leadership in regards to this project. Without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Now it is time to introduce all of our panelists. I see Debbie on screen. We will do introductions one at a time, so please turn on your screen when I call your name. I think that will help everybody be able to see. So I see two people already on screen. Oh, I see Debbie. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us your name, where you're from, and what you've been doing.
Thank you. My name is Debbie. This is how I sign my name. I live in the Congo. My occupation is working in the deaf community. I was a former instructor, and now I'm an administrator for a school for the deaf. And I work in partnership with the National Association for the Deaf. As well as a law school. So with that, I'm happy to be here today with all of you.
Thank you, Debbie. Good to see you again. I'll mention now that Debbie also used to be involved in the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders in the year 2017. If I remember correctly, you were the first group to come to Gallaudet. So now, Debbie, if you turn off your screen, and I'll ask Binta to come on screen. Binta, are you here? If not, let's have Nehemiah come on screen. So you can both remain on screen. So Binta, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Binta from Gambia. My brother is deaf. And I also work at the local association for the deaf. And in addition to that, I work with an agency for deaf women. I'm an NWF Washington Fellow. I've attended Gallaudet University. And I'm quite proud to be with all of you here today as a part of our panel discussion. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, Binta. Good to see you again.
Next, if Nehemiah, you wouldn't mind coming on screen.
Good morning, everyone. I am very excited to join this panel. My name is Nehemiah, and I am from Nigeria. In 2016?
I was in the US State Department in 2016, and I had studied law, in particular in Nigeria. Okay, thank you so much for your introduction.
Binta, you can turn off your screen now.
Gregoire, if you wouldn't mind to go next.
Rose, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Rose. I'm from Kenya. I work with a nonprofit NGO, a non-governmental organization, for management advising. I'm also in the MWF. I've been so since 2020. Although at that time I had to connect virtually because of the pandemic. Also a member of the AEI, the Alumni of Enrichment Institutes. I will participate in that in 3 weeks. So I'm excited to see you all and engage in rich discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I wanted to clarify that Rose was part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship cohort in the year 2020, which was the year that the COVID pandemic hit. And so Rose then participated in 2021 online, not in person. But recently Rose was able to come here to Washington, DC last summer for an alumni enrichment program here in Washington, DC. Rose, good to see you here.
The next person we'll call up is Marissa. If you wouldn't mind coming on screen. Perhaps she's busy at the moment, or maybe having technical issues.
Maria? Oh, perfect. Maria is here. Hello, everyone. I'm Maria Chale from Malawi. This is how you sign my name. I was a participant in YALI in 2018. And I'm so happy to be here. And I work in the disability inclusion as a facilitator.
We're happy to have you here today, Maria. So in the opening slide, you may have seen another person's photograph, Emmanuel, who unfortunately is not able to join us this morning. At least it's morning here where I am. But, we'll proceed.
All right, so thank you again, everyone. Thank you to our panelists for accepting the invitation to join this webinar. This is going to be an open dialogue. It's not like an interview question. We just would like you to share your experience as an African from the various countries that you come from. We have a mix of representatives from different regions in Africa. And people wonder what the African deaf experience is like. If you work together on different projects, or what your vision is for the deaf community in Africa going forward. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Umar Takur for the first question. Once we ask the first question, panelists, feel free to click on the icon that says raise hand. And volunteer to answer the question.
Additionally, when we ask our questions, we'll be sure to include them in the chat. I'll proceed to sign the question. And as I'm signing the question, it will be posted in the chat for the audience to read. Are we ready?
The NSL interpreter right now has frozen. And so as the interpreter team, if you see the other interpreter frozen, feel free to switch out yourselves.
Okay, so this is Umar, and I'll begin with question number 1. Hopefully everyone's excited and ready for our first question. Most, if not all of you, have had the opportunity to participate in one or more programs. The aim of these programs is to foster leadership among young Africans. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the programs that you were involved with look like and what your outlook was on them?
Sure, I can respond to that.
Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
Thank you. I used to work in the summer for the deaf community in Congo. The situation was not easy for deaf leaders. There was many issues that we faced. And so when I participated in the Young African Leaders Initiative, I had the opportunity to go to America. That was the first time that I was able to go to Gallaudet University. After that, I went to ASU, Arizona State University, before going back home to the Democratic Republic of Congo. When I came back to Congo, I worked very hard. And the program helped me because given that opportunity to go to America, I had the opportunity to share with many of my colleagues and also connect with a network at Gallaudet. I found a deaf lawyer, was able to connect with advocacy and do some advocacy work here in the Congo. And so here in the Congo, we want to follow the same model that I learned in deaf leadership. So now I teach deaf leadership. But one problem that we still see, even though the program was so important, it helped give me experience, a network. I was able to meet people. And when I came back home, I was respected as a leader in my community.
Debbie, thank you very much for your response. Excellent work. You're clearly someone who's worked very hard. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rose, and I'll start off by explaining that I worked in an international non-government organization for many years. So I was participating in an NGO. I helped develop a number of proposals for funding, and I also volunteered in working with a deaf organization to help them develop proposals for funding. In my experience, developing proposals from different funders, we didn't have much success, although we did make multiple attempts. And then in the MWF, it was through that experience that I was able to work with a number of different individuals who were skilled in various specialties. When I came back home, I adjusted and updated my proposal for MWF, and they helped revise that proposal. Since we weren't successful up to that point, MWF was able to assist us in revising the proposal for additional funding. And there were different hearing and deaf participants throughout these different organizations. And they empowered individuals and allowed them to utilize more of their capacity. And now through that network, I'm able to reach out to other individuals who have been a part of the foundation. There's one hearing Nigerian woman who I was able to connect with through her NGO. And she specialized in education. She was able to present and give details about educational access in Nigeria. And I was able to learn so much from her that I was able to apply here in the field of deaf education. So I was able to learn from that hearing Nigerian woman. And I was able to apply that practice here in my own country. There's also another organization in which a woman reached out to me and asked me to help with her project in developing a proposal for funding that supports children with disabilities. And if I had not been in my fellowship, I would not have learned about people with disabilities. And it's as a result that I was sought after to help that other person. I'm very grateful for that opportunity to have these connections through the MWF. Through my engagement, or I'm able to connect with others and provide assistance.
Thank you, Rose. Anybody else?
Binta.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Now I'm back in my home country. And I now train people as entrepreneurs so that young people can develop skills to build their own business. I joined the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders. And from there, I learned people skills. And that led to me having more experience. I learned how to help change my community, to also help empower the deaf community. And the program also gave me a larger network. I'm now in contact with many other individuals. And so that helps me have more people to talk to make better decisions. I feel like now I have so many people around the world in my network that I can work with. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response. What a wonderful discussion. Nehemia, would you like to come up next? And then after Nehemia, Maria can come up afterwards. This is Nehemia. I was involved in a program at the United States State Department, which was the Youth Exchange Studies program, aimed at helping high school age youth up to the age of 17 come to America and have a host family for about 10 months. And in that time, you learn more about American culture, develop leadership skills, and teach about your home culture and the culture in the country that you grew up and all of that background. So it was an opportunity to have a cultural exchange with American family. At the age of 17, I was a part of that program. So that was from the year 2015 to 2016. At the time, I stayed in Colorado at the Colorado School for the Deaf, and I had a host family. In that program, I was able to learn so much because of the different opportunities I had to participate in numerous programs. I can recall when I first arrived, there was an orientation workshop for YES students, and this workshop took place in Oregon, and it was hosted by an organization called Mobility International USA, MIUSA for short. And it was through that program I was able to learn about the Americans with Disabilities Act, in addition to how Americans would seek out support for individuals with disabilities and provide accessibility services. So I learned a great deal through that experience, and that led me to the desire to study law. At the time, I wasn't aware that deaf people could study law. I was very young, and that was a very eye-opening experience for me. So as a result, when I went back home, I declared that I wanted to study law, and now I'm in my 4th year of studies. I was also involved in different programs while I was in the YES program, and I learned about the Gallaudet University youth program called the Academic Bowl, which I was able to participate in. I also participated in a writing competition, which I won in 2016, and I volunteered a great deal during my 10 months there. I had totaled 100 hours of volunteer service. I volunteered by helping children, giving presentations about my home culture. I volunteered at the library. So between my experiences as a volunteer and participating in different programs, that helped me develop tremendous leadership skills and abilities. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nehemia. Please turn off your video. And next, I'd like Maria to come up on video. If you would like to share your remarks.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity. For now, I don't work with an interpreter, but I'll be speaking. Is that okay? So now, my opportunity came when I worked with Malawi National Association of the Deaf. There, I learned how deaf culture is all about because I grew up from a hearing environment. But the first time I flew to America through Young African Leadership Program, I learned the value of individual identity, understanding and accepting myself for who and what I am. I went to Drexel University where I learned about civic leadership and empowerment. Here in Malawi, many organizations of persons with disabilities serve deaf people have challenges accessing financial capacity to help them develop and achieve their objectives. It's very, very hard for them. And they don't have enough skills. But when I flew to America and learned about civic leadership, I came back home and started empowering my deaf association in Malawi. At the same time, I also worked with different organizations. For example, U.S. State of Agency. There, I helped to develop books for teaching deaf children how to read English. At the same time, I also helped develop assessment methods for supporting deaf children. Right now, I'm working with Save the Children with a focus on disability inclusion, because one thing I've observed is that most of the organizations that are helping deaf people don't have full information about how they can help them. They don't understand the importance of working with interpreters. They don't understand the value of having interpreters in classrooms. So my responsibility now is to provide capacity building for these organizations to understand the value of sign language as a language for deaf people and as a language for children to be able to access full education and different information. Right now, I'm involved in capacity development of small communities with a focus on empowering
We're having some technical issues. Please bear with us. All right. We'll move to the second question now because Marie is frozen. Maybe Marie, you can join us later. And this says, Amanda, if we could just pause one moment for the NSL interpreters to switch. And Kafayet, if you would turn your video off, perfect. We'll now proceed with the second question. Well, hopefully Marie's tech problems will be resolved soon. I'm so happy to hear about the experience of each of our deaf leaders and their participation in several of these programs. To move to the next question. With your participation in one or more of these programs, how has your participation helped you to be able to network and also to expand your opportunities with other deaf people and other deaf communities in Africa? To do collaborative work with deaf leaders and other deaf organizations. And let me also put the question in chat for you to read. So again, for our panelists, feel free to turn on your videos when you would like to answer. Rose? So once I finished the program in 2021, there was only 2 other deaf people that were also in the program. I was able to then write a book for teaching deaf children how to read. It was great to be a part of that partnership. And I was able to be involved with many different organizations. But most of the network that I developed through the program was with other hearing organizations in other countries.
After that program, I went back home, and most of my network were also alumni of that program in my hometown. So I was able to go back home and work with those alumni. And I was also working with the Nigerian deaf community. And working with other Africans in other state exchange programs to help develop further legislation. And hopefully that network will serve their network well. Debbie?
Thank you. I was in the YALI program, Young African Leaders Initiative. And that program really helped me connect with other deaf leaders, as well as other hearing leaders in the community. I also was able to network with leaders worldwide, especially in legal advocacy. And was able to be involved in advocating for deaf rights. I got heavily involved in that. Last, it helped me develop my network with other deaf leaders in other African countries. Here in the Congo, we were able to train other deaf leaders. And so this was such an important program. Also, while we're setting up these programs for we were able to get other deaf leaders involved and help develop their own skills.
Debbie, thank you so much for all the work that you've done. Does anyone else want to volunteer to share a response? Maria or Binta? Okay, Binta. All right, this is Binta. And I just wanted to explain the former president of the Gambia Association for the Deaf. I was also a part of a women's empowerment group in Gambia, focused on the deaf community and providing education, in addition to healthcare, so both education and healthcare. In addition to that, I was able to support employment. So I encouraged women to get in the workforce. And also I was involved with supporting deaf children's education And I'm very passionate for the work that I do in supporting parents who have deaf children and teaching them how to be socially inclusive. I'm no longer president of the Deaf Association, but I'm still engaged in advocacy work. My agency focuses on empowering deaf women, and I continue to be involved with that work. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, Betty. It's very important. They say if you train men, you train small. But if you train women, then you're training the whole entire country. So Benta, thank you so much for teaching all of Gambia. Gregoire, would you mind coming on screen?
Sure.
So it appears Maria is still having technical difficulties.
I just sent Maria a message. Hopefully we'll see if she responds.
Okay.
But she is still here on the webinar as a participant.
Perhaps we should continue to the next question. Amanda, could you please share question number 4? Question number 4. You just talked about some of the networks and connections that you have. If you've ever collaborated on a project with someone else from another African country, could you share with us what that project was and what your experience in that collaboration was like for you? Debbie, would you like to respond?
Sure, thank you. I've collaborated with several other deaf leaders. A few weeks ago, I worked with deaf individuals from Uganda. They were also YALI participants from Nairobi, which is in East Africa. This project that we worked on supported training other deaf leaders, or supported deaf leaders coming to the Congo to get training and to raise their social capacity as leaders. And now we have a new project in Eswatini. It's a country in East Africa, supporting young deaf leaders. I worked with them while the pandemic hit, supporting their growth. We did different promotions to make sure that people understood the health risks of the COVID pandemic and to raise awareness about health issues within the deaf community and how deaf individuals could protect themselves from the COVID-19 pandemic. That's another project that I was involved in.
Wow, I can't help but to feel chills. I would like to join you in that important work, Debbie. Thank you so much. Okay, Rose is up next. Hi, this is Rose. I'm excited to hear Debbie talk about a Uganda deaf person by the name of Edgar. Edgar is someone I'm delighted to work with. He taught the deaf Ugandan group on how to have quality how to have quantity in their various projects. And I also work with other deaf Ugandan associations, in addition to teaching Kenyan organizations. I've had the pleasure of working in Tanzania. I provided trainings there and multiple workshops on how to develop proposals for funding, how to develop finance management skills, and I've trained all across Eastern Africa. I'm particularly interested in working with individuals in this panel and potentially collaborating with future individuals from Gallaudet or the Mandela Washington Fellows, as well as sharing and exchanging ideas with individuals from Gallaudet as to how we can develop a stronger program. I'm working with an international NGO.
Rose, you were frozen for a second. Rose,
Can you see me now?
we can. You just ended saying you worked with another international NGO.
So I worked with the Deaf Child Worldwide organization. That was the international NGO. And I would attend various programs as well as teach various methods on how deaf children can learn English. I partner with different deaf organizations in preparing instructors for teaching deaf children. This is Umar. Wow, Rose, the work that you've done is incredibly important and impressive. I hope that other individuals are able to learn from you and take notes on your experience. Does anyone else want to respond to the last question? Come on up. And Nehemia, why don't you hold on? Let's let Binta go first. Okay, thank you, Binta.
All right, it is nice to see everyone's stories about the work they're doing with other deaf African individuals. So the ADI, African Deaf Ideal, is an idea of how we can get deaf people together from different African countries so that we could all come together and work together around ideas. So roughly 2 months ago, there was an African deaf individual who got sick. And so we were trying to figure out how we could find money for this individual. And we were able to send this deaf man funding for hospital treatment because we worked collaboratively. I worked with a Nigerian deaf individual
Helen, I think you were talking about.
So I worked with Helen on an idea about how we could help Gambian deaf individuals have access and success, access to communication, and communication specifically around healthcare. We were able to learn a lot from that deaf woman in Nigeria. And then the third partnership happened last year. Myself and another individual worked together on developing a training for 25 deaf women in northern Nigeria on entrepreneurship and business skills. How we could make sure that deaf Nigerian women had access to employment and were able to advocate for themselves. And so I'm so happy to see that many of you are having similar experiences.
Benta, thank you so much for your work. I think Nehemia would like to respond. I see that his hand is raised. This is Nehemia. As I observed a lot of your responses, I've been able to learn from your experience in the different work that you've all done. I've been able to learn a great deal from that. In the program that I'm an alum, we're able to get together with, in the YES program, we're able to engage with different African students. And we would like to implement a program where all of us as alumni can actually work together, learn from each other's experience, and learn something new from everyone else. The United States, the US State Department is also a part of this effort to work together. And there are different programs that exist that I'm able to learn from, as well as gain experience from the Deaf Women's Organization, which is a very positive experience. I've been able to work with NGOs in countries all over the continent of Africa. So I've loved the opportunity to be able to collaborate.
Nehemiah, thank you for your wonderful words. This is why we need more young deaf lawyers to help us analyze legal issues.
Okay, I think we can move on to our next question.
I've enjoyed watching all of the panelists' responses and all of your contributions. I didn't realize that it's almost 10 o'clock here in Washington, DC, and we have roughly until 10:30. I'm very excited to what we've seen. I also wanted to go back to what you said, Nehemiah, about watching and learning from everybody else. At the same time, I want you as young Africans to do better than we did for a better future to improve the African deaf community. I'll ask the next question. We've talked about networking and collaboration and working with other organizations in Africa. There are obviously countless opportunities for Pan-African collaborative work. I'm wondering, what do you see as the biggest obstacles to success for collaboration with other organizations and other deaf leaders in Africa? All right, the question has been posted. Debbie, please come on screen.
Okay, thank you. So question number 5, if I could respond to that. That there are many programs that exist. And I think it is worthwhile to partner with other deaf people to develop more success. However, there are obstacles. I'll explain some of those obstacles based on my experience in the Congo. Some barriers to these programs include financial issues and a lack of funding. It's critical to support these initiatives. We know that USAID exists. And oftentimes funding that's supposed to be allocated towards our initiatives end up going towards hearing projects. It is important to make sure that you have proper measures put in place to help sustain these deaf projects, and make sure that you're selecting the proper deaf leadership in order to train others when it comes to these various projects. We need to encourage more partnership in Africa. USAID has a goal to help support the deaf community in Africa, and for that, I'm thankful. Next is Rose.
Thank you. My points were very similar to points that Debbie made. The obstacles are, first and foremost, funding. From my experience, often funding goes towards general disabilities instead of funding specifically for deaf organizations. And so these programs do help people with a very different organizations for people with disabilities, but they don't have enough experience to support the various disability groups in each country. And so it's important to consider funding that goes directly to deaf organizations to help empower deaf communities. Many deaf people have ideas, we have dreams of what we want to do and what we want to achieve, but the capacity and the empowerment is not there. And so funding should be provided for capacity building among the deaf community. And that's something that we are hoping to get support in, because we need capacity to strengthen deaf community leaders. Another challenge is exchange programs. I've seen Debbie and Nehemiah talk about the work that they're doing. Kenya, we do not have a lawyer that's deaf. And so again, looking to support deaf individuals to be able to have education to achieve their potential and do things like be lawyers and have other employment opportunities.
I'm hopeful that happens. Next is Nehemiah.
If we could pause one moment for our NSL interpreters to switch. Thank you, Kafe.
Thank you for this discussion. I certainly agree with everyone. I also think that there is a challenge that alumni members face in the lack of visibility. For example, there is not enough awareness of the Mandela Washington Fellows alumni. I haven't had a chance to meet all of the alumni members. I think visibility in that sense is not strong. We should be able to network and leverage that network to allow us to have more successful partnerships. So I think that's one obstacle. Also, I think that when it comes to partnerships and exchanging information, that's something that will allow us to develop more success as it relates to these programs.
Amy was mentioning visibility. And yes, thank you for talking about that. Mandela Washington Fellow alumni and many of the deaf individuals that have participated through Gallaudet University. We see 4 or 5 here on this panel, but there are about 30 deaf alumni. And we've been talking about having a virtual reunion where all alumni could come together. And if that happens, Nehemiah, I'll let you know. There are other deaf alumni from these other programs that we could get together as a reunion. That is a great suggestion. Thank you for that. Umar?
This has been a wonderful discussion, but I'll hold off on my response and I'll allow Binti to share her remarks. And afterwards, I'd be glad to share a little bit more of what my perspective is on obstacles that exist. It doesn't appear that Binti has any response at this time. So I'll go ahead and take this time to share a little bit of my perspective on some of the obstacles that exist. Many of you have shared examples, and one example that Rose mentioned is how large government organizations or NGOs don't just fund the deaf community, and we need to partner with other individuals with disabilities. This kind of work requires a lot of communication and utilization of language. Using spoken language, individuals who are blind or in a wheelchair are able to access information, but sign language requires information in a visual way, which can be difficult. There are also members of the deaf community that are deaf-blind or deaf with additional disabilities. And with that in mind, you need to elaborate more on the support resources available. There are many individuals who are not only deaf, but perhaps deaf with additional disabilities. And I think if we shared and provided more communication access to these resources, we might be able to have success in obtaining funding. Binti, welcome back.
I'd like to add more about funding and funding management. Often deaf organizations don't have training in how to manage funding. And so, again, when the project is funded, it's important to have that training. And we might not have the opportunity to manage those funds or have had managed funds before. And so here in Gambia, I worked with the deaf organization and developed a network so that when the organization was given money, or when we were asking for more funding, often people didn't want to give us funding because they saw there were some weaknesses in our organization. And so I think one thing that it would be important to give deaf organizations training about how to manage funds. And often we don't have the opportunity to collaborate. And I think it would be great if we could work together with deaf African organizations in other countries. But again, there needs to be some training around funding management. Also, African deaf organizations need support in being able to manage those funds.
Thank you, Vinta. That's a wonderful suggestion. We'll certainly take note of that. Now that we have our interpreter, we know that time is running out. And in the essence of time, we want to jump to our next question. This question is one that's very important. Question number 9. And I hope that we're all excited to respond to this. Globally, Gallaudet is known as a university in Washington, D.C. However, we know that there's efforts to establish Gallaudet in Nigeria, Africa, or GAIN. And the purpose of GAIN is to make higher education accessible not only to deaf Nigerians, but to all deaf Africans. You may have heard about how Gallaudet has engaged in this project. Did you wonder about why the project is aimed to be established in Nigeria? What were your initial thoughts about the project? Rose, I think your hand was up first. Would you like to respond?
Thank you. I heard about GAIN recently. And I didn't know that it was a project that was going to be established in Nigeria. I think it would be nice if Gallaudet helped all deaf Africans become familiar with what Gallaudet University is doing. I'm sure very few deaf Africans know about that university. And why in Nigeria? Kenya is a beautiful country. I would love for Gallaudet to establish a university in Kenya.
Well, hopefully we can answer that question for you. But before we do, is there anyone else that wants to share their thoughts? I'm actually curious to hear from other Africans. Nehemia, can you hold on for your response? Maybe, oh, Debbie. Looks like Debbie's raised his hand.
Thank you. I remember in 2017, when I participated in YALI, I had the opportunity to meet President Cordano at Gallaudet University. And I did hear about the idea of Gallaudet in Nigeria. And at that point, I didn't know that it was a plan to have a university. I think that it is a great idea. to have a Gallaudet in Nigeria. It would be a branch of Gallaudet in Africa. And it's a wonderful idea because it would be closer for us. And we'd have an opportunity for higher education in Africa. It would also be a wonderful opportunity for employment of deaf people at the university, and not only open to deaf Nigerians, but all deaf Africans. That would help us to have a network of deaf Africans, again, access to higher education. Here in the Congo, there are many hearing universities, but there is not an opportunity as a deaf person to teach at a hearing university. And so to have a deaf university, that would mean that deaf people have access to employment, to be able to teach at the university, teach deaf people, and maybe even teach hearing people about the deaf community.
Binta, what do you think about that? This is Binta. For me, the first time that I heard about Gallaudet University, it made me excited. This partnership excited me because as someone who loves Nigeria, I was very interested to learn more about this project. There's no other university that exists like Gallaudet. There are many hearing universities that exist, and in my experience, it's been very difficult in order to access those universities. Gallaudet University is in America, which is very difficult for me to travel to. Having Gallaudet in Nigeria close to my home is much more convenient and ideal for me to visit and attend. And I hope that with the work that's being done to establish GAIN, it will result in many deaf people in Africa, and particularly in Nigeria, that may have struggled to obtain visas. Being someone from Western Africa, I don't need a visa. I think it's easy for me to access Nigeria or to enter Nigeria. And I think if we had GAIN or Gallaudet in Nigeria, that would be most ideal. African people have spent so much money in order to obtain a visa, and it's very expensive to go to America. I think it would be best if we could establish Gallaudet in Nigeria, in a central location in Africa.
So thank you. Now we'll allow Nehemiah to answer the question. Thank you so much. After hearing all of the responses about the positives for this program for the entire continent of Africa, for Gallaudet to establish a university in Nigeria. So thank you for all of your positive comments about this program. When I first heard about Gallaudet in Nigeria, I thought it was a great idea. Because I know as the program starts, it will start small, but it will be able to influence the entire continent of Africa. And that's how ideas typically start. They start small in one country, and then they influence many others. And so this program will make Gallaudet University more accessible to deaf Africans. And that's one of the reasons I think the project is good, because there are many brilliant deaf people across the continent of Africa who would be able to go to a college or university, but they can't afford to go all the way to America. And I think bringing people together in Nigeria would give an opportunity for us as the deaf community in Africa to flourish.
Thank you so much for your comments. I think it's very clear that all of us appreciate having Gallaudet in Nigeria, and being someone from Nigeria, that's not an indication of my bias. I am neutral. At this time, we know that we're nearing the conclusion of our event today. So I would like to summarize by turning it over to the panelists and allowing them to ask any questions they might have. Rose, I think you had a question earlier about why GAIN was established in Nigeria. Perhaps you can ask that and we can have a response or an answer for you.
Thank you, Umar. My question was, why Nigeria? Why not other countries in Africa? Also, many deaf Africans are not familiar with the concept about Gallaudet in Africa. And so I'm wondering what Gallaudet is doing to promote the Gallaudet in Africa initiative. Rose, you're not the only one with that question. I remember at the WFD conference in Paris, I remember that Amanda was also there with me. And we met several participants in that conference from Africa. Amanda, I don't remember if you were there. There were so many people, but we had the opportunity to meet with deaf Africans and explain the Gallaudet in Nigeria program. And we got the same question from many of the deaf Africans about why Nigeria. And so Rose, you're not the only one asking that question. So now let me turn it over to Amanda to talk a little bit more about Gallaudet in Nigeria and what we're doing to raise awareness about that program.
Amanda might be supporting the interpreters behind the scenes, so let's give her a moment.
Hello, everyone. Can you see me? Yes. I'm supporting the interpreters are supporting each other. There's so much tech going on behind the scenes. We could have a full meeting just to show you all of the things going on behind the scenes with other Zoom rooms, technology, and WhatsApp. Thank you for the question about Nigeria. There are many reasons why we decided Nigeria. Our international alumni from Gallaudet, our second biggest international group, is from Nigeria. That's second to the amount of international students from Canada. We have strong ties with Nigeria. And we also know that Nigeria is what we call a superpower country. We also know that other African countries, and many of those that you have just mentioned, are wonderful countries. And the intent is not to ignore those countries. Our goal is to partner with many countries in Africa. Also, the generous support from USAID has allowed us to start our initiative there with the Deaf E3 activities. So this is our first step to the work with the goal of establishing something there in Nigeria. And I'd be happy to continue this conversation. At the same time, I want to give the panelists an opportunity to share any final thoughts with our audience. Umar?
Amanda, I think a follow-up question that Rose had is, how did you promote the idea of GAIN or Gallaudet in Nigeria so that individuals in the community are more aware about it? How have we promoted that program?
I'm happy to answer that question in detail at another time because the focus of this webinar is on the Deaf E3 program. We do have a GAIN Facebook page and we share information there. We also share information about our Deaf E3 activities. We also have information through WhatsApp. We are in the process of building a new website to promote both Gallaudet in Nigeria and our Deaf E3 activities and all of the work that we've been doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. So Rose, I think for any further questions, you can reach out to Amanda. She'd be happy to elaborate with further detail. But if there are any other panelists that have questions they'd like to ask before we wrap up, can you please raise your hand? And Debbie. Okay, Debbie.
Again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to ask questions. One specific question that I have about Gallaudet in Nigeria. Once GAIN is established, is this an opportunity for us to go there and learn? With trainings and workshops, I'm wondering if there are going to be deaf professors that come from America to teach those workshops, and who will be teaching at the university.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. I think we can hold off on the question specifically about GAIN. I think we'd like to perhaps focus on how we can best support deaf programs, such as the E3 program. I know that there's been conversations about GAIN, and it would likely take us months to a year to finish those conversations. So let's put that to the side, and instead let's focus on what programs similar to E3 are available out there to support members of the deaf community. Rose?
One question I have is, what is E3?
Amanda, could you help answer Rose's question about what is E3? Amanda, could you explain a little bit more about what E3 stands for?
Sure, Deaf E3 stands for 3 E's: education, empowerment, and employment. We know that education is a good goal, but if society still puts in place many barriers for deaf people to get a job, what's the point of education? And so Deaf E3 is about equal access to quality education first and foremost, and direct access to communication in a deaf person's native language, so that they have the ability to directly engage with professors and other students, just like we do here at Gallaudet, to have the opportunity for deaf people to learn both inside and outside of the classroom, which is a model of true inclusion. We know that the word inclusion is often misunderstood. For deaf people, the word inclusion means full language access in sign language. So first is education. The next is empowerment, so that deaf individuals know that they can do whatever they want, that they can start a family, they could travel, they could be an entrepreneur. That the deaf community is empowered to be a full member of society. The third is employment. We all want the same thing in life, to be able to support ourselves through employment. And that is DEF E3. Our 4 focus areas are: first, for teachers of deaf students. We just finished a 1-month-long training in Nigeria, supporting 42 instructors all over Nigeria to learn how to teach multilingually and multimodally, with multilingual and multimodal pedagogy, which is truly inclusive of deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind students, which is true access. The next is supporting the deaf community in general through deaf organizations to do capacity building. The third is interpreting. We know that many countries do not have sophisticated interpreter training programs. And so we also are supporting capacity building for the interpreters to be trained to then support the deaf community so that deaf people can have access through interpreters. The last is the reason that we're having this seminar. It's capacity building for USAID and their partners. Our goal is to continually educate all organizations to realize how deaf people can be included in all projects, not just waiting until there's a project specifically about deaf people or deaf education, but if there are projects around clean water, that deaf people can be included, and how we can support the inclusion of deaf people at all levels within USAID programs. And so that is DEF E3 and what those 3 E's stand for, as well as our 4 initiatives.
Amanda, thank you for your in-depth elaboration there. I think that's very helpful to all of us. And at this point, I think our curiosity has been somewhat satisfied, although you can never really fulfill entirely that spirit of curiosity. I appreciate your willingness to answer the questions that were posed today. And at this time, we are at the conclusion of our event. But before we wrap up, I would like to extend my gratitude to all of our panelists today. Thank you to Debbie, Nehemia, Rose, Maria. Even though I know that you had difficulties with your internet, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you to the Nigerian Sign Language interpreters for all of your work, as well as the American Sign Language interpreters behind the scenes. We would also like to thank the certified deaf interpreters who are willing to support today's event. I would like to wrap up by allowing Gregoire and Amanda to come up on screen and share their final remarks. Just to remind you, sometimes it may be difficult to remember sign names. So you want to make sure that you're very intentional with that.
Well, I really have nothing to add. Thank you again to all of our panelists. Thank you to everyone who facilitated the conversation for today. Well, often also thank you to Amanda.
Thank you to Gregoire, Omar, for moderating today's panel event. Thank you so much for all of your work. I would also like to mention my gratitude to everyone in the chat. We also had someone who just joined us, and that's Khadija Rashid. Thank you for joining us. And Khadija Rashid is the executive director of the program. If you would like to come up on video before we close out today's event, so that way we can recognize everyone who's a part of the team.
Thank you, everyone.
And of course, thank you to all of our attendees who joined us today, whether you're local or joining from afar. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Bye-bye. At this time, everyone can log out and exit the webinar.